Welcome to Lady Family Live, guys. It's great to be back. I know it hasn't been that long. We had a session not too long ago for the October releases, and now we're covering the December releases. So for all the members that are watching tonight, thank you for your loyalty and for sticking around with us and supporting us. We appreciate that, and we're hoping that you're loving the wines that we're sending your way. I see Sean's throwing out. He's having the 2015 High Fidelity tonight. Great wine. Good opportunity to open it up for sure. If anybody else, if you're enjoying some great wines tonight, please throw that in the chat there and let us know. We're going to taste through all the December club releases tonight. I've got Ryan Hodgins, the winemaker for Fell Wines, joining us. And then I've also got Travis Bullard, winemaker for Cliff Lede, joining to talk about the 3 Cliff Lede wines that we had in our club release. So a couple of things that, what's going on out here in Napa. It's raining, which is great. We, for those of you that are aware, we've kind of been in a drought period over the last little while. So it's been nice to get quite a lot of rain. I think the last webinar, we had some rain in the background, but we had a huge downpour towards the end of October. And then again, just recently, another one. So that's all the real positive news that's coming out of Napa, is everyone's really excited about that. The 2021 harvest all went really well, and I'll have the winemakers speak a little bit more to that. For anyone that is in the area that wants to come visit us, we'd love to see you. We're open for tastings right now. I'm actually in the tasting room, and you can see how festive and nice it is right now. We've got our beautiful Christmas tree up, and we also got some really cool new art pieces in the backstage gallery. So a lot more John Lennon back there. I know we've had a little bit of John Lennon in the past, but there's a whole section dedicated to John's work. So it's pretty cool. Before we kind of bring the winemakers on and start tasting wine, I want to take you guys just through something a little fun and interesting. I would like to show you how easy it is to access your wine club newsletter. So I'm going to quickly bring up my share screen here. So bear with me. I don't know how many webinars I've done now, but I always kind of second guess how easy these things are to pull off. But this is the main Lady Family Wines page, and you can access the club drop down on any of our pages, whether it's Fell or Cliff Lede. You drop down to this newsletters tab and scroll down a little bit, and you can find all the past newsletters and everything on here, at least over the last year or so. So I'm going to jump right into December 2021. This gives you this beautiful little flip book that you can go through, and it's got all kinds of great stuff in it. So you've got a welcome letter from our wine club team. So always great to hear from them. You've got technical information on the wine. So if you want to know the blend of anything that came in your shipment, you're going to have that right there. Covers our library release, the 2013, which we'll taste tonight. And of course, the Fell wines. So a little bit more information on those. We always try to do a fun feature here in this issue. We're going to talk about how the Poetry Inn got a newly refreshed look. So we worked with Erin Martin, based out of St. Helena, designer, and she did an incredible job up there. So more info on that. Sherelle, our new director of hospitality, a couple questions there, a little Q&A, so feel free to check that out. Chef Lynn, executive chef at the Poetry Inn, always puts together some wonderful dishes to pair with the wines that are in the shipment. So this is a great thing to check out if you want to have a fun night, but tasting the new wines that you just got and cook up some great food. She's got a pairing there with the Pinot Noir and another one here for the Cabernets. And Chef Lynn was kind enough to make me a pairing tonight. So I'm going to enjoy that shortly here. But you can see there's also just information on your benefits. And well, really, there's everything you need if you want to learn more about your club and just connect with us a little bit further. So just wanted to point that out. So thank you for bearing with me, guys. I am going to attempt now to bring Ryan in. Let's hope he's here. There he is. Perfect. So I'm going to bring him in. But before I do, I want to just give you a little shot of that. Those are those butternut squash crostini that Chef Lynn made. So I'm going to have a nice little snack as Ryan's telling us about these wines. So let's bring him in as a panelist and let's get it going. People, if you have questions at any point in time, please throw them in that chat. We'll try to address them as we go through the webinar. And if not, we'll always catch them at the end. So thanks for that. So Ryan, welcome. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing quite well. And you?
I'm good. These are always fun. It's hard to believe that it's almost been 2 years since we started doing these. So I don't know how many we've done at this point, but I think they're great. And it's always fun for me to learn about the wines, even though we're covering, some wines we've talked about before. Now we're going to talk about new vintages. So we have whole new stories to cover. and whatnot. And I'm really thrilled for tonight because we're covering such a wide, spectrum for the Anderson Valley.
Absolutely.
And so I look forward to hearing your insight on that. But why don't you kick it off by just letting us know how did 2021 harvest go for you? How did everything kind of turn out, and how are things tasting so far?
Fantastic. I mean, the 21 was definitely the harvest we needed. The only complaint we have about 2021 is that there wasn't a lot of fruit, but everything we got was spectacular. We had just incredible concentration. As you were mentioning before, the drought conditions of the year did impact the grapevines, but that led to smaller clusters, better concentration, really tiny berries, and just some really vibrant, fresh wines that I would say in the last 5 or 6 years, this is far and away the best the wines have showed this early.
Interesting. So how does that contrast with what we're tasting tonight, the 2019s?
So 19 was kind of the little bit of the reprieve that we had in terms of the drought years. We had a decent rain in the 18-19 winter leading into the growing season. So there was, it was 19 was more of a bumper crop. We had to spend a lot of time in the vineyards, dropping a lot of fruit, controlling our yields. But it was, an even harvest, didn't have any significant heat spikes. But I think in terms of the way the vineyards were behaving, 19 and 21 were kind of opposite ends of both. Like, we have nice, easy growing seasons like a 2019, where the work that we have to do is in the vineyard of dropping fruit and ensuring concentration. Mm-hmm. Whereas in 21, nature did that for us because there was so little fruit and the clusters were so small.
Gotcha. Well, with that, let's dive in and taste these 2019. So we're going to start with the Farrington Vineyard. I think that makes most sense. So let's, while we're doing that, I am going to bring up the map of the Anderson Valley. So for our viewers that aren't too familiar with the appellation, this is kind of our key to introducing the area and how it sort of works. And of course, all the different vineyards that we work with. So I'm going to start enjoying this little pairing I've got here. But Ryan, please, at this point, just talk about Farrington. That's down in that south end there. What makes that a unique part of Anderson Valley, and why do we do a single vineyard from there? Like, why is that important?
Okay, so step back on Anderson Valley. As you can see in the little inset map, we are way up north. California's northernmost and one of its coolest wine growing regions, 120 miles north of San Francisco. The valley itself is about 15 miles long and opens onto the Pacific Ocean. So we get the brunt of the storms that, the storms we're getting right now really just pound the valley, and a lot more rain up there, and just colder growing conditions than you find, say, in Napa or Russian River, any of the other North Coast growing regions. As the valley goes from the southeast to the northwest, Boonville is the inner end of the valley, so it's more protected from that ocean marine influence, and that's where Farrington Vineyard is. And Farrington's a beautiful property that was planted in the 1980s by a Dr. Farrington, and then the current owners, the Schoeneman family, bought the property in the mid-90s, and it was the first site in Anderson Valley to be produced as a vineyard designate, starting in 1995 by William Sellium. It was one of their original vineyard designates. And so I've worked with the site since 2005, and always a really expressive Pinot Noir. It's kind of atypical for Anderson Valley Pinot Noir in that it tends to be more red fruit dominated, a lot of kind of crushed raspberry, bright fruits, a lot of spice. It's not most Anderson Valley Pinot Noir, and when we get to Wendling, you'll see that's much more of a darker fruit profile. Farrington is kind of always stands out as this really bright, fresh, vibrant red fruit.
I've got a shot here of the vineyard that I found online. So I think, and as we look at this versus Wendling, you can see this is, below the mountains, right? You're kind of down in that lower section. Looks very exposed, right? I'm thinking probably a lot of sunlight throughout the day.
A lot of sunlight, and it's the warmer end of the valley because it's more protected from the ocean, but that also, the farther you get from the ocean, it means it's colder in the winter. So we have more frost there in the spring, and it's just, it's on one of the tributaries that make the Navarro River. So it's up above the river bench and is, it's a gentle slope. There's a lot of gravel in the soils as it's kind of sitting on an alluvial fan that's the creek that lines the trees sits on.
Wonderful. What do you feel is the aging potential on this wine? I mean, now Farrington, I think, has been, do you go back with Farrington as far back as you have with Savoy? Because you've been working with Savoy since 05. So
yes,
you also have that experience. Okay.
Yeah. So 05 was my first vintage of making a Farrington Pinot. And I pulled one, not this last Thanksgiving, but 2 Thanksgivings ago, and it was still singing. It still had a lot of vibrant red fruit and hadn't gone into too much of that really aged Pinot character. I mean, it was certainly there. There was notes of leather and kind of more of the mold spices and whatnot. But these Pinots, there's such concentration, there's such structure. They're going to last 10 to 15 years and still be singing, like before they start to maybe turn a corner. So if you have an older Farrington, I think you'd be pretty confident that you could pull the cork and have a really delicious wine.
Nice. Well, why don't we kind of jump to the opposite end of the valley now? So I'll go back to that map that we're using, and I see the Wendling Vineyard is way up here near Navarro. So you're going from basically the first vineyards in the south end to the last vineyard in the north end, right? In fact, isn't it the last vineyard in the valley?
It is the last vineyard in the valley. As you can see, Highway 128, which follows the Navarro River, the end of the Anderson Valley AVA, American Viticulture Area. So our appellation ends just after Wendling Vineyard, and the next, you can kind of see on the map how the highway after it passes Wendling just starts squiggling a lot because it's following the meandering of the Navarro River, and that's all dense redwood forest at that point. So when you're driving that road on the way to the coast, you're just dodging the trees pretty much. They put the road around the trees in that area. So Wendling faces to the southeast, and it's on a steep hillside, so it's more protected from the winds that are coming, and has
I do have a picture of that one too.
Great, let's pull that up because it's one of the most picturesque vineyards we work with.
Well, this is the picture I've got, so hopefully
yes,
works for it.
So that's it. I mean, it's we've got the significant slope. The site is surrounded by redwoods, Doug
fir.
You
can feel like you're up, higher elevation, right? Yes. I think this is 800 feet or so.
A little less than that. It's actually not because the valley slopes towards the ocean. The elevation isn't actually that much greater than Farrington, but
Oh,
its
interesting.
prominence above the valley is, because the valley is dropped and the site is sticking up. So, prominence is a weird mountain term that they use to describe kind of how far something sticks up above what surrounds it. And Wendling has a lot of that. So it is the soils are very shallow there. So the soil, there's not a lot of water holding capacity in the soils. They drain easily. And the grapes that we get from there just have tremendous concentration. And, it's a beautiful site, and it's farmed impeccably. It's the vineyard management company that we work with at Savoy and at Farrington is owned by a gentleman, Paul Ardruni, who's been farming in Anderson Valley for about 30 years. And this is his personal vineyard. So this is, our farmers' pride and joy. He farms Savoy magically and impeccably, but Wendling is his own baby. So there's even an extra level to that in care and effort that he puts into it. And you see it in the wines. The wines have just a beautiful concentration, a lot more structure than we see at Farrington, a lot more dark fruit profile, but they're very, very expressive of the site.
So that's that struggle for water is creating these super concentrated berries because, for me, I'm thinking, okay, it's cool. It's the cooler end of the valley. It's higher elevation. It's probably going to be a lighter and a brighter wine. Like Farrington is warmer. You're going to get riper flavors. You would think that would be sort of the bigger of the two, but that's clearly not the case here. You have a lot of power in this wine. Yes.
That was my assumption going into it. The first vintage I made, Wendling, was 2016. So it's still relatively new to our portfolio. And I expected it to be more delicate. I had previously worked with another site that was just one hill further inland, and it was that. But one of the quirks is that where Wendling sits right off of Highway 128 is actually a very protected site. Highway 128 follows the Navarro River for much of the Anderson Valley, but before it gets to Wendling, the river and the road split. And the river is the channel that the coastal wind comes in. So the cooling influence, the fog, all moves along the river channel. But the river is actually a little bit to the south, and there's a ridge that you can actually see in this picture just beyond the vineyard there. That's where the river is. So the wind that's moving through and it's cooling things down kind of skips around the backside of Wendling. So even though this is the last vineyard in the valley, it's more protected than many other sites in what we call the deep end, which is the area close to the ocean. And so that's where that power and concentration comes from.
Excellent. Well, it's such an expressive wine at the same time. A lot of that, you mentioned that dark fruit component, a lot of density. I can feel like that one, that's going to age for a very long time.
Yeah.
It'll be a fun one to watch. And like you say, it's only been in our portfolio for a few vintages at this point. So it'll be great to kind of go down that road. But I guess I can stop sharing the screen now. But I'm really into that. I really like that 2019. In fact, I think it's the first Wendling to me that's really sort of honed and found I guess like a home in the portfolio. Like it really makes sense. So kudos to you guys for finding that path in a really short time frame. Delicious with that pairing, by the way. I got to enjoy that Crostini with both the wines. I would say it probably went better with the Wendling. So if I had to choose, that would be the one to go. But I should also point out to all the viewers that I opened these wines yesterday. So I had a little taste of these yesterday evening, and wanted to see where they'd be at today, and they are much more expressive and open today. So don't be afraid to aerate, give even your Pinot Noir a little air. You know, I know that people will do that with their Cab. They always think about that, but they don't think about it with Pinot. And I think that these wines, there's so much going on. There's so much intensity and concentration, and you need a little air for those nuances to come out. So really, really nicely done.
Thank you
Really
very
nice
much.
wines. So that was great. It looks like we didn't catch any questions as we were going through the wines. So if anything comes up, we'll bring you back. But for now, Ryan, I'll just say thank you. I appreciate your time, and hopefully you have something fun that you're going to do these holidays. I know last year we went through the holiday cocktails, and you had it was the milk punch. Was that
Milk punch?
Milk punch. So have you had your milk punch yet this
I
year?
have not yet. That'll probably be this weekend.
Excellent, excellent. Well, happy holidays to you and your family if I don't see you before then. But thanks again for joining us tonight, and have a great one.
Cheers.
All right, guys. Well, gonna get Ryan back. Let's see. How do we do this again? Again, you know, been through this enough to where I should kind of know how to easily navigate all of these ins and outs of panelists and co-hosts and all this fun stuff. So there we go. But now I will need to bring in Travis, who is going to help us, guide us, I should say, through the Cliff Lede wines. Let's get him on here. So we've got 3 wines from Cliff Lede. Not everybody may have got the third wine, the final wine that we'll finish with, because that wine was only available to our Ultimate and our Collector members. That was our 2013 Stag's Leap Cab. Travis, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, Jay? Thanks for having me.
Good, good. Just tasted some wonderful Pinot Noirs and had a little food pairing with that. So things are good down here at the tasting room. You probably should have came down and filmed down here, and then you could have joined in on the festivities.
I didn't know you were gonna have samplers. I didn't know.
Yeah, you know, I'm sorry I didn't disclose that. You know, I didn't know she was gonna make 6 of them. I was handing them out to the team here. They were all loving it. So don't have the empanadas, unfortunately, the other recipe that we've got. But I've got these beautiful Cliff Lede wines. I've got 3 of them. But before we jump in there, how did the rest of 2021 vintage go for you guys? You know, Ryan talked about lower yields. I know it's probably the same story more or less, but any other updates you're happy to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so it was a fast end to harvest. Yeah, we had same with us, lower yields, fast ferments. Everything went down to barrel pretty quickly, and we're all the way through our secondary fermentation. So all the malolactic fermentation is done in the cave. All the wine's been sulfured, tucked away. It's in barrel. It's all resting, and we were just able to go through last week and taste everything. So we did the first pass. The wines are showing beautifully. We're really happy with them. Even this young in barrel has really bright acidity to it. A lot of complexity, really beautiful flavors. So we're happy to watch everything evolve over the next year and a half. Yeah.
And you don't have a 2020 in the cellar. So, you know, now it's kind of like you get this little, you know, breather, more or less, right? You get the kind of exhale after harvest now.
Yeah, I just watched our 2 cellar guys walk out of the building, and they're heading off for Christmas vacation. So they're gonna be gone.
Well, good for them.
Yeah,
good for them.
Well deserved.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna taste 3 different wines, and we're gonna kind of start with the newest and go to the oldest. So we'll start with the 2019 Claret. So this is always a wine club favorite. It's such a nice wine that you know, you don't have to feel guilty about opening this up on a Tuesday night, right? Or a Thursday night like tonight. It doesn't have to be the super special occasion, but you want to have something you know that you trust and that you know is really comes from great sources. And so 2019 Claret, my notes are showing me that there's more Cabernet this year than in the 2018. So give us an idea of how this wine kind of comes together, and what you're tasting and what your thoughts are on the 2019 Claret.
Absolutely. All right. So the Claret is a red blend of Bordeaux varietal grapes, sourced from all over the Napa Valley. So this is a really fun wine for us to make because we're blending across appellations, and we're able to pull from many different lots to make up this wine. So I think this is like the one red wine in our lineup where we're making it with the idea, I think you touched on, that it's going to be consumed quickly after it's purchased. And that's kind of what we want. Like, so when we're building this wine, you know, we're trying to make it approachable in its youth. We're trying to make it fun. Yeah, like you said, no guilt, no pressure to open it. You know, this is something you can drink, you know, any night during the week with a lot of different, you know, lighter foods. You know, it doesn't have to be, you know, this doesn't have to be your super serious Friday night, you know, you're at a steakhouse or something like that wine. You know, this is something you can enjoy midweek.
So what are some things you do in the winery to kind of get this style? Is it less new oak? Is it, you know, maybe you're looking for the lots that aren't like ultra concentrated, like with a lot of tannin, like just what are kind of the things that when you're tasting through that kind of speak to you, like, okay, that would be great component for Claret?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, we're making this wine kind of in a similar style, or in a similar way that we're making all of our wines, you know, so we're treating it the exact same as it's coming across the floor during harvest. We're fermenting it the exact same. I think you touched on it there, you know, going down, you know, the first kind of differentiation is when it goes down to barrel. You know, we are using a touch less new oak. And then, yeah, I think just when we sit down and build this blend, you know, we're pulling a lot of different components that across the board are really working together to kind of make that wine. So yeah, when you look at the red wines, this blend has more single components in it than any other ones that we make. Yeah, and so I think this I mean, I really am in love with this 2019. I think all the vintages, 2019, 18, and 13 that we're trying tonight, they're more similar than they are different. They were really all three fantastic years, very strong vintages in Napa. And yeah, when you look at this wine, there's a lot of bright red fruit, black fruits. There's lots of spices with cardamom and clove.
It's got a little bit of like, even though maybe it wasn't heavy handed on the oak, but it has like that like vanilla cream quality. Like maybe it's just because it's a young wine to me, but it smells like a really nice barrel sample almost. Like it has that really. It just feels like it's got that beautiful little vanillin character. Yeah, it still has a little bit of new oak on it. And yeah, it's very fresh, like lots of black cherries and espresso and black currants. I would call this a medium bodied wine, but it's very expansive in the palate. It has really silky tannins in it. So yeah, like I said, very approachable in its youth. You know, when we poured this at the tasting for all the hospitality staff, everybody was just like, wow, like this was, you know, they're always excited to taste the Claret because it's a wine that is also popular here within the staff, but everybody just reacted super well to this wine, this vintage. So yeah, I was talking to you guys for making incredible wine for, I mean, I think this is like $48. Like that's just, it's like unheard of, you know, and it's basically Napa Valley Cabernet at this point. I mean, you know, there's a few other blenders in there, but really nice. I was talking to Tony the other day and I was telling him, you know, the Claret is the one wine that us up in production, you know, we get almost the most feedback from of people saying it's their favorite wine. So it's really nice to hear. And yeah, really kind of over delivering on this wine, I think, for the price point. I like too, it's the preview, right? Like you get to taste the 19 vintage now in a very approachable sort of way. And then you kind of know what to expect down the line for, you know, the Rock Block releases and the single vineyards and the Stag's Leap Cab. Like you can kind of get that first little hint of what was that vintage like. Sure. So it's always exciting when it comes out because it's always the first of the new vintage. But shifting gears a little bit on that, maybe we can switch over to the 2018 Diamond Mountain, and to help us tell this story, maybe I'll pull up the good old Napa Valley Vintners map of the appellations of Napa Valley, so everyone can kind of get their bearings as far as what we're talking about. Everybody, of course, knows that Cliff Lede Vineyards is based here in the Stags Leap District, right in this northern corner. So that's our home, and that's where we've got our beautiful 60 acres and the Poetry Vineyard and the Poetry Inn. But if you head north, you go far enough north, you're going to come up to the Diamond Mountain District, which sits on the west side of the valley. And 2018 Diamond Mountain is what we're going to enjoy tonight. So Travis, tell us about this wine.
All right. So full disclosure, I really love the vineyard that we're working with in Diamond Mountain District. So
I feel like everybody up in the, in winemaking is like in love with this wine.
Yeah, we're very, very partial to it. Yeah, so we're in the Mayacamas mountain range. As you see there in the picture, we're in the northwest corner of Napa Valley. There is elevation limitations to be considered Diamond Mountain District. So you need to be between 400 and 2,200 feet. So it's actually a little bit lower than the requirements for Howe Mountain, which is what the wine that we went over last release. Howe Mountain, starts at about 1,400 feet. So this is a little lower elevation. And the primary vineyard that we're pulling from, I think, is actually at 600 feet. So it's really not that high as far as considering it like a mountain vineyard. And so, yeah, the primary vineyard source for this is a vineyard called Clay's Vineyard, and it's 4.5 acres planted entirely to Cabernet Sauvignon. It's a beautiful hillside sloped vineyard facing the northeast exposure. And Cliff Lede's been purchasing all the fruit off of this vineyard since before I started working with it in 2010. And this vineyard, I think, little factoid it was planted in the mid 80s, and I believe it was David Abreu's first vineyard planting in Napa Valley. So it's farmed by Abreu. It's meticulously farmed. It's really volcanic, shallow volcanic soils, really well drained. And yeah, when you combine that with his farming, we get really low yields, like 2 tons an acre.
Okay.
And they're these really beautiful, like super loose clusters, these tiny, tiny, tiny little beautiful berries. And it makes a really concentrated, powerful wine every year.
So to give a little perspective on that 2 tons to the acre, that's, if we're at the Poetry Vineyard, you might see a little more than that, or in that range, that 2 tons-ish range, versus maybe the valley floor, or maybe, let's talk about maybe like a mass-produced vineyard. You're going to get exactly 6 or 7 tons to the acre, or?
Yeah, so obviously, like when you're on the valley floor, it's going to support more tons because you've got deeper, richer soils. The hillsides, part of why we like hillsides is because naturally they're going to produce lower yields. So you don't have to actually actively drop fruit to get down to that 2 tons per acre. Poetry is pretty similar. I mean, it's very shallow soil, so it's going to go around 2.5 tons per acre. But yeah, as far as Cliff Lede's vineyards are concerned, we'll maintain that tons per acre. So we'll go through and thin fruit just so we get that concentration even on the valley floor.
Well, like, give me an idea, like a big winery, I'm not going to mention any names, but let's just say like a mass producing winery, like tons to acre, like what are we?
Yeah, it depends what varietal, but yeah, I mean, Cabernet, they can push 6 tons an acre easy, okay. 7 tons. Sure.
That's like 3 times less yield.
Yeah.
In these vineyards. So that's great. One question I had was, there's always this concept of like mountain tannin. I find this wine is like super refined.
Yeah.
I don't know if this has that or not.
No,
what are your thoughts on that? And if not, is it because it's at that lower elevation?
Right. Yeah, I think, something that you find in the Cliff Lede Diamond Mountain, which is because it's this Clay's Vineyard source. I mean, it really is polished tannins. I mean, there's tons of structure and tons of tannin in there, but yeah, there is, even in its youth now, there is a lot of refinement compared to, like, if you tasted the Howe Mountain, is like a little more rustic in its youth, right? And I would attribute that to just the lower elevation. This is around 600 feet, so you're not really getting you're not really getting quite the like temperature gradient that you would up on the higher elevations.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are you tasting here? What's coming out in the glass for you? I mean, this to me, I did not open this wine yesterday. This one, maybe probably 2 hours ago at this point. So a couple hours of air. I find it to be like super expressive. There's a lot coming out of it. This isn't, I'm not regretting not opening this, much earlier, although I'm sure it'll drink great for a few more days. But, what are you getting? What do you find?
Yeah. So I opened this a little bit earlier this morning. But first off, I mean, it's like just this inky black color.
Yeah.
Super beautiful. There's a lot of like fresh tobacco leaf and violets and dark cherries on the nose. And then on the palate, I was thinking there's like cedar and red plums and blackberries, and like kind of a hazelnut thing. Like, I don't know, there's almost this vineyard too. We get a lot of like blueberries from vintage to vintage. There's kind of like a blueberry core in this, oddly enough. But yeah, really, really polished, very structured.
Got a little spice there too. I'm picking up a little, I don't know if it's spice or if it's like a sweet pepper, like a grilled sweet pepper or something like that. Maybe it's because my wine wasn't opened, this morning, but
yeah,
I get that little touch of it. It's like a little bit of like earthy terroir quality that I always want to find that when I'm drinking something with such high percentage Cabernet, right? Yeah. It shouldn't just be all fruit and no nuance and no, little complex notes.
Yeah.
That's what I like about this wine is it gives you that powerful fruit, but then there's this little like intrigue to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not just one, not just one dominant note in there.
Mm-hmm. It's fantastic. Really, really nicely well done there. So our last wine.
This is a nice Christmas dinner wine, if you're going to do like prime rib or something like that over the holidays, like this thing could stand up to that.
Absolutely. That's what every Christmas Eve, my family, we do steaks. That's kind of like our standard thing we do. Doesn't matter where we are, we figure out how to do it. This would be a good option for that dinner.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we used to do that, but my wife, she changed to seafood on Christmas Eve.
I've heard about that tradition, and I just don't know.
We've been doing like chipinos and crabs and all that stuff.
So maybe you're drinking Fell Chardonnay.
We probably will pull
or Sauvignon Blanc, Cliff Lady Sauvignon Blanc.
We'll probably go Fell because they're such beautiful wines. We like to.
That Savoy, that 2019 Savoy Chardonnay.
Awesome.
I can't get enough of that wine. But I'll be having something more like this Christmas Eve. Last but not least, maybe another Christmas Eve option for all of our ultimate and collector clubs. You had the option, or you had the ability to get some 2013 Stag's Leap District Cab. This wine, we're sold out. We don't have any more of it other than large formats. So if you open a bottle and you really enjoy it, we do have large formats left, but all the 750 ml formats are sold out. So we always like to do a re-release of a library vintage. 2013. I mean, this was a momentous vintage for us because obviously it was our first 100-point score with poetry. And I remember when we got that score, I mean, I remember this year, it was just beautiful out here. I mean, great growing season. But Travis, I mean, I know you've been with us for, over a decade now, or close to a decade. You were here for this vintage. You were working with Chris. That was still maybe a kind of a new relationship, only a couple of vintages with him. But like, what were your thoughts, or what do you remember about 2013 that really stands out? And like, how did you guys just make such incredible wines that vintage?
Yeah, well, that was like a really banner vintage growing season in Napa Valley. Chris started in 2012. I started in 2010. 2013 was the first year I was just promoted to assistant winemaker. So yeah, Chris and I were kind of like, we're still filling each other out. We've been working for a year together, but like,
But you were now going out to the vineyards and take, helping with the picking decisions and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're just kind of, we're kind of learning, how to do this thing together and, feeling out each other's strengths and weaknesses and how we can support each other. And then this like beautiful vintage comes along, like, and kind of falls in our lap here. So we're very grateful for the 2013 vintage. It'll always be kind of like, I think, a special place in our heart for both me and Chris. But yeah, just beautiful growing season, like, wet winter leading into like a pretty warm spring. And the big notes, like through the growing season, like no huge heat spikes, no rain events during harvest. Like it was just kind of, just perfect, beautiful. Like we were able to pick, the fruit exactly when we wanted to. We weren't rushing. There was nothing, we weren't doing any kind of like mercy picks or juggling things around during harvest, when sometimes you have to do like make, concessions and stuff like that. But this was just this beautiful, temperate harvest where we were able to kind of like cherry pick each lot exactly and bring it in exactly when we wanted it. Yeah.
Well, we couldn't talk about a Stags Leap District wine without talking directly about the Stags Leap District, of course.
Right.
Beautiful little appellation, the smallest appellation in Napa Valley that we're proud to be a part of. We've got our excellent 60 acre vineyard here in the northern corner. And for all the viewers out there, you must be familiar with the rock blocks, but it's always fun to talk about this story and the different aspects that we have going on in the vineyard, and truly what make this wine so special. You can see that most of this vineyard is Cabernet Sauvignon. Pretty much everything to the east of the Silverado Trail is hillside. And then you've got what we call our Valley Floor, our Twin Peaks Ranch vineyard down here closer to the west side of, or on the west side of our property, closer to the Napa River. So Travis, I mean, what are your insights about this vineyard? You've got a lot of different soil types going on. You've got all 5 different red Bordeaux varietals. I mean, what is so special about this vineyard that makes this wine special? Because this isn't just hillside, right? This has maybe a little hillside, some valley floor.
Yeah, this wine, the primary component is the Twin Peaks Vineyard, which is everything surrounding the winery on the left-hand side. So everything that's colored on the left side of the Silverado Trail, that's heading west. That's the Twin Peaks Vineyard, and so that's nothing over there is hillside. And then there is a little bit of Poetry Vineyard. So on the right side of Silverado Trail, they're sloping up the hill is the Poetry Vineyard. So there is a little bit of components into there that'll come into this wine.
Because Poetry, I mean, that's a 20 acre vineyard. So, you could, if you just made a hillside Cabernet, right? That's 20 acres. That would make a lot of wine. Right? Yeah. You make like 1,000 cases of Poetry. So you're inevitably going to have stuff that doesn't make the cut for Poetry, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But now gets, involved in this wine.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful wine. But just, the Poetry, we're pulling like the best of the best off of that vineyard. And so, this gets kind of, we call it like declassified down to the next tier, and that'll make it into this SLD cab. And yeah, so this, we're in the northeast corner of Stags Leap District. So the Yountville Crossroad there is the northern border of Stags Leap District. And then Poetry is basically also like the northeast corner border of Stags Leap District. There's actually an elevation limit on Stags Leap District, which is 400 feet. So those Smells Like Teen Spirit and Free Falling, those at Imagine Vineyard, that's actually not part of Stags Leap District because it's too high. But yeah, just really shallow soils. Poetry is all on like this fractured slate. And then you can kind of see like everything, that whole hillside is going to just kind of, decompose down into the flatland. So if you go over to like Shoot to Thrill and Roundabout, those are still a little bit shallower soils, well draining, lots of gravel. And then that's what we kind of like for Cabernet Sauvignon. So you can see all of our cabs planted on that side of Twin Peaks. And then as you go as you continue going west on the property, exactly, that's going closer towards Napa River. So those soils start to get a little bit more deep. They get a little more heavy. There's a little more clay component to it. And so we really like planting Merlot on that type of soil. So all those green blocks over there are all the Merlot. And then also put a little bit of Sauvignon Blanc over there in the corner for something.
Yeah, we're excited about that. Because I think this was kind of the first year where you were able to harvest some of that Sauvignon Blanc. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. It was like, I think we got maybe a ton of fruit off it.
Very cool. So what are you tasting here? Like, what are your thoughts? I mean, now we're going back in time to 2013. Now you're tasting this wine that you made back then. Where are you thinking this is at? Would you let it rest in the cellar a little longer? Like, what are you picking up?
I mean, this thing is shown beautifully right now. It is so lively, like tons of structure left on there, like super long finish. I think if you can't wait, you can drink this thing now, and I think you'd be really happy. But it's going to last, 10 plus years easy on this thing. I mean, I'm getting lots of like violets and blackberries and creme de cassis. There's like a graphite crushed rock core, which I think maybe you pick up like some of that from the Poetry Vineyard. There's a lot of like black licorice and like leather and dried tobacco leaf.
I always get that little element of like dark chocolate. And I'm thinking like it has something to do with the tannin too, because, when you take a bite of, dark chocolate, like high percentage, it's got that like drying factor to it. Like it's got that like same sensation. So I mean, I feel like it's a sensation thing, but it's also in the flavor profile. Right. And I don't feel like it goes away. I feel like that is something that in our Stag's Leap District Cabernets, there's always that little element of dark chocolate.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Like cocoa powder or something like that. Wonderful. So as I mentioned, not a lot of that left. In fact, it's only large formats at this point. So anybody watching, if you're interested in getting more of that, give us a call and we'll tell you what we've got. But obviously a great vintage, super popular vintage, and one that will continue to drink well for, sounds like, decades. So that's exciting. That pretty much covers the wines for tonight. And I don't see much action in the chat as far as questions go. So with that, Travis, I think I'm just going to help. I'm just going to say, thanks for joining us. We're going to probably just sign off and I'll see you in February. Will be the next webinar.
Okay.
And I'm super excited about that because we've got two new wines that we're going to be featuring. So both on the Fell side, and don't say what they are yet. I know you're excited too, but we've got two new wines. So on the Fell side, we've got a brand new wine that we've never made that we're going to be bringing into the fold. And we've got a brand new, I'll say, red blend for Cliff Lede that I had a personal hand in helping make. So I am very excited about the next webinar. So for everybody watching, keep an eye out for that email. We hope to see you there. And I hope everybody has a safe and happy holidays. And I guess that's pretty much it. Travis, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers.
All right, guys. Cheers. See everybody in the new year.